Greetings, fanboys and fangirls. Merry Christmas. Jared here with another review from Fanboys Forever. Today we're going to continue our look at the Naughty or Nice series of figures. These are Big Bad Toy Store exclusive. They come from a small company called Fresh Monkey Fiction, which is affiliated with Big Bad. They're doing a line of Santa Claus figures. Since we already looked at just standard classic Santa Claus, we'll be looking at the second one I picked up, Sergeant Santa, which is definitely meant to be more of your G.I. Joe or Army kind of Santa Claus. These figures are in the 6-inch scale and cost right around the $37 mark. On the packaging, you can see that we have the same as we saw with the classic Santa with the designs on like a Christmas sweater. And on the back, we get a look at some of the other figures in the series with a little bio. The packaging is very reminiscent of Marvel Legends. Before we begin the review, I would ask that you guys subscribe and be sure to like the video. It really does help us out here on the channel and helps the channel grow. Be sure to comment at the end, letting me know what you thought of this figure. With that out of the way, let's have a look. And here he is, the Santa Claus figure you had no idea you needed until now, Sergeant Santa in all of his glory. So let's go ahead and just have a look at this guy in terms of sculpting. You can see I have his comrades back here, at least that's what I'm saying, in my action figure display from G.I. Joe. That's probably the main reason I bought this version, is so that he could go with my G.I. Joe Classified. And before we go any further, I just want you to see what a great fit he is in that world of figures. It is exactly what you would hope it would be in terms of scale. And he pretty well goes in there fairly seamlessly, except for the fact that you'll have, you know, literal Santa Claus and combat with the Joes. But I'm into that kind of thing. So let's start out by looking at some of the sculptural details and the paint. With Sergeant Santa, we are looking at pretty much a repaint of the basic Santa Claus body, the classic Santa. Of course, any kind of independent action figure company like Fresh Monkey Fiction is going to look to maximize their tooling just as much as they possibly can. And so the name of the game is really trying to get as much use out of your base body and parts as you possibly can. And I think that they've been more successful in this regard than a lot of companies have been to attempt something like this, because you look at their line and it's all practically the same body, just used over and over again, except for the small scale figures. And that's a very successful combination, really, because all of these feel pretty unique, but they're all utilizing the same base tooling. So it makes these figures a possibility for a smaller company. As we look, we can see just the obvious thing is that there's this Christmas camouflage. Now, I think it's kind of hilarious to imagine a situation where this would be the appropriate camouflage pattern to keep you hidden from your enemies. But let's imagine you're hiding amongst Christmas decorations. So maybe you would blend in. Maybe. Other than that, the body is exactly the same as classic Santa, which we'll see here in a minute with comparisons. Now, the big difference is going to be the original head sculpt up here. And this is something we'll see repeated throughout the line. They practically all have original head sculpts. That's kind of the draw of each release. So this one is particularly great because it honestly looks just so grizzled, and the beard is different and the hair is different. We can pop this helmet off and you can see that the hairline is different. It's a shorter haircut. It's colored just, you know, the white and gray like I had wished that the classic Santa was. The sunglasses aren't removable. They're just sculpted to the head. Paint applications are actually really good. And so, you know, you've got the big boys like Hasbro and all of that, and maybe they should watch out a little, because some of these smaller guys are able to achieve, I mean, just as good, if not better, paint application and accuracy. It's kind of startling to see how good this turned out. Even paint hits that should be a little more complicated, like the separation between the sunglasses and the eyebrows, are practically perfect with no bleed over. Even the classic Santa had a little bit of bleed over on things like the rosy cheeks to the mustache. That doesn't really happen here. It almost looks like Big Boss from the Metal Gear games, sans eye patch, and with a longer beard. So kudos to them. It really does look super nice. This one is really funny because Santa has even got a stogie here in his mouth and is chomping down on that. That's not removable. I'm pretty sure that is just in the sculpt. If it is removable, I don't know anything about it, And I would hate to, you know, like pull on this thing and then all of a sudden break it off or something. It's one of those things that are a little more fragile. So who knows, maybe you could pull it right out, but I don't think it's meant to be removed. It doesn't feel like the most secure connection in the world either. So just watch out. But yeah, I'm really satisfied with the head sculpt. I think it's a great touch. Now, not only does he come with the Army helmet, which is, you know, completely removable, but he also comes with just a reissue of the Santa hat, only this time it's done in this new camo pattern. Just like we talked about with classic Santa Claus, this is hard plastic. It's just a hard sculpt. There's no soft goods or anything. You can completely turn it around if you wish, if you want the palm on the other side, and it looks completely natural that way as well. I think it's interesting that you have like the fur is kind of a little more green tinted almost, like there appears to be a slight wash of green within it, so that is one interesting difference as well. You know, the hats feel like they're molded really well to go on the head sculpts, but it's kind of funny because since this is the exact same hat as the classic Santa release, it's almost like they didn't take into account the exact proportions of the head changing for different head sculpts. So you'll see that it's not on there quite as securely, but it's on there securely enough to where it's not going to come off. But when you have it in hand, you can definitely feel there's a little more wiggle room. Like if you don't get it on there just right, it might come off, but this is still pretty secure. As you can see, I even tried to loosen it up a little and it still wasn't leaving the head, and that's without the aid of like a magnet or anything like that, so good for them. He does come with an hilarious arsenal of weapons, like this rocket launcher right here. I mean, I don't know if this is an RPG or what, but this is really funny. I don't know if this is taken from their like tooling base for some of the other figures that they're working on right now that you can check out on Big Bad, but it's really cool. He does have a trigger finger hand, which is a funny thing for Santa Claus to include. And over here, he has, in my very limited knowledge of firearms, I can tell you this, I don't know, pump action shotgun, maybe, is that right? And the sad thing is he doesn't come with a left trigger finger hand, so he can't dual wield. And when you try to put this in there, you can see the grip is way too loose. Now, you can get creative probably and nudge it in there a different way, maybe. But I found the only natural thing to do with this open hand was to hold it by the barrel, almost as if he was doing the one-handed pump thing from Terminator 2. So that's the only thing I could figure out with that hand. Of course, this is a really good trigger finger hand because it holds this securely without being too tight. Let's see how it does with the pump action shotgun, and voila. It is also a really good fit. You can get some excellent poses with it like that. And over here, with the open hand, again, you will just basically have to hold it by the barrel. And that's as close as you can get to some kind of dual wield action. Although Santa is well articulated, as we will look at the articulation just very briefly, it's not really well articulated enough to where you could get this hand to hold the barrel. So that's kind of unfortunate. He does come with a couple of alternative hand options. You do get a pointing hand, just like you got with classic Santa Claus. So it's just a shared accessory between them. And you do actually get a fisted hand over here for the left. So that's a great accessory because there were no fisted hands with the standard classic Santa Claus. Interestingly, you will see that the flesh tones are very different between classic Santa and Sergeant Santa, with this being a lot more rosy and this being a lot more just basic flesh tone. So I definitely thought that was worth pointing out while I remembered it. He of course comes with the same display stand that we saw with classic Santa Claus, which is just the Naughty or Nice stand. These are really plain. I wish that there was maybe some paint on the logo there, but they work out really well. At first, you'll find that the peg holes are awfully tight on these things, but that's of course to give it a secure hold and that they're a little easier to handle. So it's nice to have a display stand. It's not all that necessary, thankfully, with the Santa Claus figures because they're so well balanced and they actually have a good bit of heft to them, and the articulation is really nice. So Santa also does come with a gift basket, and just like with the classic Santa, you can open it up and you can see there's nothing inside. It would have been nice if they'd included something like a hand grenade or something. It just would have been funny. You can see that classic Santa included the exact same gift box, except the colors are kind of flipped around, but this is more limey green. So I think that's really cool. We'll definitely compare it with the classic Santa Claus. You can see that side by side. It's funny to even think that they are the same body, but they indeed are. The only difference is the head sculpt and paint jobs with accessories. So that's a great cool thing that they've done with just this one standard body. You can of course switch the hats out if you like. That's actually a really good look with the regular red hat. And this is kind of just a funny look, right? You can also utilize the helmet that he comes with, the military helmet, and regular Santa can ride into battle. Not only that, but the heads are completely switchable between the two. So if you just want regular old Santa Claus to be smoking a stogie and to be wearing sunglasses, you can get your wish. He's definitely taking an off day at the North Pole. Funny enough, this hat, even though it is the same sculpt as the one you get with Sergeant Santa, it feels a little more loose, so oh, it actually still holds. So these hats keep surprising me. I keep thinking they're going to fall off, but they don't. But still, it's a little more loose, but it does help hold on, so I mean, that works. Of course, that means that you can have military Santa winking over here if you wish with the classic Santa head sculpt. We'll just briefly look at articulation with this guy, just so that you'll have a general idea of what he can and can't do. The head has a little bit more movement to it because the beard is shorter than the classic Santa, so you're able to do quite a bit more than classic Santa, so that's really good in terms of being able to cock the head and look down and look up, so that works out well. You do also have pretty much what you can achieve being a 90-degree right there bend at the shoulder joint. Be careful because I do feel like that there's a lot more paint going on here than standard Santa Claus, so this is something that could scratch a little easier, but so far it looks pretty decent. It doesn't look like anything too bad has happened. He does of course rotate all the way around at the shoulder. You do get a rotation at the bicep and elbow. You also get a hinge. It's just single jointed, but it goes to about 90 degrees, so that's good. You get a hinge on every single one of the hands. This is kind of an up and down hinge, not an in and out, and you do get a twistable wrist. You do get a waist swivel, but that waist swivel also doubles as kind of a bend where you can go down just a little bit, but you can go way back as if he's laughing like a bowl full of jelly, you know, as he blows up the enemy. You can also get some pivot left and right. It's nothing too crazy, but if you work with it, you can get it a little more extreme. I like how that articulation looks natural no matter what you do with it. So that is great. It really beats having a big like hinge right in the middle of his chest that would have broken up the sculpt. Of course, just like with classic Santa, I was impressed by the ability of the legs to do just flat out splits because you have these gaps right here, these seams that are in the skirt piece. That also means that yes, he can get a straight up 90-degree kick because this is flexible, and again, those seams are really working for it. And you could actually set him down if you wanted to, no problem. So if you had a 12th scale tank or military vehicle that you wanted him to be on, it would be both hilarious and awesome. So it could look really nice. Also, this is perfect if you want a character to set in his lap and tell him what they want for Christmas and what kind of ammo they're going to be looking for this year. Down here, we also have a swivel at the thigh. We do have a swivel at the knee. We have a single jointed hinge right there that works pretty well, gets pretty well everything you would need. There isn't a cut at the boot as far as I can tell anyway. There is a great deep hinge at the ankle, and there's plenty of ankle rocker pivot. So that means that even the craziest kung fu deep poses that you can imagine for Santa are pretty much possible. And because the figure is fairly weighty, it works. There we go, Santa Claus, most dangerous man alive, able to flat foot that pose like nobody's business. And he is very sturdy. You know, it's not like he's barely in this. The weight is really working for the figure. Of course, we have a deluge of action star comparisons to make Sergeant Santa proud. We have old standbys like NECA's Dutch Schaefer figure from the Predator series. Now Santa is in 6-inch scale, Dutch is in 7-inch scale. But using Santa's stand and a little bit of creative posing, it can look really nice. Another 7-inch scale figure that I just can't help but put in there is Doom Guy. So this is from the second new Doom game. And I think that looks really funny, especially because, you know, Doom Guy's in 7-inch scale, but still. We have another 7-inch scale comparison. We have John Rambo from First Blood, and since he's a little shorter, it works quite a bit better, especially if you have Santa on that stand. And just like with classic Santa Claus, the scale is pretty well perfect with their version of 12th scale. Of course, you already saw how most of the main Joes looked with Santa at the beginning of the review, which was fantastic. But now I want to show you what a bigger Joe looks like with Santa Claus. And Sergeant Slaughter looks great with him because Sarge should be a little bit bigger than this Sarge, I would think. But together, they definitely look like they could command the Joe military forces during a Christmas invasion of Cobra Island. Let's check something out. Well, what do you know? There you go. If you want Sarge to get in the holiday spirit and have his very own camo Santa hat, you totally can do that. It isn't really on there in any kind of way. There's not even like a lot of friction holding it. It's just setting on there through the aid of gravity. But it looks really nice, like for photography. So totally something you could do. Which also makes me wonder, is this possible? Sort of? Yeah, that works. So if you get it from the right angle, it would look better. But, it's a tight squeeze on Santa's head. And if they need to go up against Serpentor, you can see that Serpentor is, of course, a giant genetic Superman. So I think that the scale is pretty well right for that. Unfortunately, Santa drafted me into the Christmas army, and now that I've been conscripted, there is no way out for me. And is it even really a Fanboys Forever review if I don't throw in Masters of the Universe Classics? And there he is. He-Man is, of course, going to be larger because Classics was kind of a 6.5-inch scaled line. Just like I did with Classic Santa, this is kind of a laughable comparison because they're going for such different things. But sure, there's Father Christmas, why not? This might be the most opposite thing I can possibly imagine for two characters that are practically supposed to be based on the same thing. It's so ridiculous, I don't even know where to start. But by far, probably the most important comparison is actual Santa himself with classic Santa right here. As I shown you earlier, the heads and all that are completely switchable. The accessories are interchangeable, especially if you take the trigger finger hand and you just plug it into his wrist over here. So you have a lot of options. They look really good together if you're wanting to build out your Christmassy display right here. I do think that the appeal of a lot of these will be fairly limited to just this certain time of the year. And I definitely think that maybe had they been able to get them a little bit quicker, maybe before the holidays, if they'd been able to get them from the factory, it probably would have helped them because you'd have more of a lead up. The first reviews of these things just only recently started popping up in the last few weeks. And I think the companies do need to realize that people wait for reviews. Reviews sell a lot of figures, at least in the adult collector sphere they do. So I definitely think that that's important for them. Maybe next year they'll have an advantage because there'll be some stock that they've maybe gotten ahead of time and they've gotten more of a flow with the factory. Here he is with the camo hat. Salvation Army takes on a whole new meaning. Sorry, that's the worst joke I'll make, hopefully, during this video. Hopefully, no guarantees. And of course, who could forget the time that Japanese Spider-Man teamed up with American military Santa Claus to, well, I don't know what they accomplished, but I'm sure it was great. And with that, we have concluded our Christmas reviews and videos for the year. Hope you've enjoyed this last little Christmas video that I was able to get out. I definitely wish you a Merry Christmas since today is the day that I'm uploading it, and I hope you and your family have had a great one. Here in my neck of the woods, we are definitely still experiencing a lot of cold temperatures and snow, so I hope that you and your family are staying safe and that wherever you have to travel, if you travel, isn't anywhere too far off. And let me know what you think about this ridiculous Santa Claus figure down in the comments below. I really am pleased with how the figure turned out. I have no regrets about buying this guy. Although it sort of has, a stupid vibe to it, I think that's the whole point. I think we're looking at like a comedy figure here. It's supposed to bring a smile and make you laugh. So I have no problem with that sort of figure. And it's just definitely something that we probably need more of. I like that goofiness. And of course, be sure to like and subscribe. We really appreciate that, and it means the world to us. And as always, God bless you and yours. Merry Christmas, and I'll see you on Fanboys Forever. Fanboy out.